going on, kids? Those of you that had me in class for a number of years know that there are kind of two collections that I have. One of which is wheels and tires for my vehicles, and the other one are boots and shoes. The reason I've kind of collected these things over the years is because I like to have the best kind of footwear for whatever situation I'm going to be going into. Whether I'm looking for durability, traction, performance, comfort, I want to have the best thing possible for where I'm going to be touching the road or touching the ground. So today we're going to take a look at a couple of different sets of tires that I have out in the shop and look and see kind of what situation they're best for. And then we're also going to go through the set of tires that are on a car and just look at their condition and see if they maybe need to be replaced. So up against the wall, I have 6 different tires that are all made for different scenarios. Now we've got an all-season tire, which is kind of like the sneaker or tennis shoe that you're going to wear year-round that's kind of good at everything. We've got a kind of high-performance all-season, which is kind of an oxymoron, a snow tire, a high-performance summer tire, and then a couple of tires that are made specifically for racing. Let's take a look at these in a little bit more detail. The first tire we're going to look at is an all-season tire, because this is probably the most common tire and probably the one most of you are going to be looking at buying for your vehicle. If we stick with our shoe analogy, this is kind of like the sneaker that you wear all year round. It's not the best in the winter, it's not the best in the summer, but it'll get you by. The markings on the tire is where we're going to start. This is a Goodyear Eagle, and the size is a 195/65/15. So that means that the tread on this tire is 195 millimeters wide. The sidewall, this portion of the tire here, is 65% of that tread width. Why they do it that way, I have no idea. And then it's a radial tire, more on that later, and it's a 15-inch wheel. So the diameter of the middle of the tire is 15 inches. These last two numbers are the load rating and the speed rating. Unless you're towing or racing a car, you really don't have to worry too much about these. I think the lowest speed rating for a street tire is like 120 miles an hour, and you shouldn't be going that fast anyways. The tread wear on this is 400. So the higher that number, the harder this tire is. So kind of the less traction it's going to have in the dry, but the more kind of durability it's going to have. Think of a high number as like a work boot. And then traction rating is A and temperature is B. Again, nothing you really need to worry too much about. If we look at the tread itself, inside of here we can see these little bumps that are kind of popped up in the middle of the tread, and those are our wear bars. Some people will take a penny or a nickel and put it down in here, and if you can see Lincoln's head, the tire should be replaced. You don't really need to do that anymore because of these tread blocks, those little markers. Once they wear down smooth to the tread, the tire is considered bald and no longer safe to drive on. Another thing we can look at on this tire is the dry rot. There's plenty of tread on this tire, and if you were just kind of give it a quick glance, everything seems to be okay. But if you look down a little bit closer, the rubber's dry rotted and cracked. So let's take a look at another marking on here. If we go around our tread, we can see our DOT tag, and there's some gobbledygook there that doesn't really mean anything to us. And then there's this date. Every tire has to have this, and this tells us that this tire was made in the 11th week of 2015. So this tire is ancient. People think tires last forever, and they're rated at 60,000 miles. So I can have this tire for 6-7 years and everything's fine. Well, think about a basketball or anything made of rubber that you might leave outside for 6 years or 7 years or maybe even 10 years. That rubber's gonna rot. It's exposed to the elements. It's gonna dry out. It's gonna crack. It's no longer gonna do what we need it to do. So kind of no matter what the tread wear is on a tire, kind of gauge your driving and plan on your tires lasting about 4 or 5 years. So this is our Continental DWS in 245/45/17, and it was made in the 19th week of 2011. So this is another really old tire. But another marking that we need to pay attention to on this one is where it says outside. And if I were to flip this over, we would see another marking that says inside. So when you see those inside-outside markings, that lets you know that this is an asymmetric tire. So this has to go on the wheel in a certain direction, with the outside facing out and the inside facing in. And Continental does something kind of neat with their tread blocks or their wear marks. They actually put DWS right here into the rubber. And when the S wears down, the tire is too bald to drive in the snow. When the W wears down, there isn't enough tread to get you through the wet weather. And then when the D is gone, the whole tire is bald and should be replaced. But this is an asymmetric pattern. We have a deeper rain groove. We've got larger blocks on the sides for extra dry traction. We've got this kind of area here that's supposed to move around for snow, but this thing is rock hard. So this is kind of that high performance all season, again, that I said is kind of an oxymoron. In my opinion, if you want an all-season tire, get an all-season. This is just going to be a little bit louder, a little less comfortable, and really not going to give you performance, because if you're looking for performance, buy a performance tire. And here we have a General Ultimax snow tire in a 215/65/16. This one was made in the 28th week of 2016. And now we have a direction of rotation stamp on here. So that means this tire is directional. It has to rotate in a specific direction. So look at the tread. There's an arrow and it points that way. So when you're mounting these, it's not inside outside. You mount two in one direction and then you flip the other two and they go the other direction. So there are tires for the right side of your vehicle and tires for the left side of your vehicle. If we dig in closer on these treads, you can see they're much, much deeper. These tread blocks are very, very soft and squidgy, so that as you're driving through the snow, these will open up and grab snow to give you the traction you're looking for. And then as the tire rotates, these kind of super deep tread blocks will expand and chuck the snow. So you have a fresh, clean tire to grab into the snow on the next rotation. Other kind of characteristics of a snow tire, typically a taller sidewall, and this sidewall is very, very soft. Very, very squidgy, as opposed to kind of this high performance all season tire that has a much stiffer kind of sidewall. This is kind of like the first part of your suspension that's going to absorb bumps. So the harder your tire is, the more high performance your tire is, kind of the less comfortable it's going to be on the road and the more noise you're going to get. These snow tires, because they're very, very soft, they don't even have a tread wear rating. They don't bother, because if you were to drive this in the summer, this rubber would just kind of melt away and it would be gone. So snow tires are awesome for driving in the snow. They're super comfortable to drive in the snow, but they don't last very long if you try and drive them in the heat. For our last street tire, we've got a 225/45/17 Hankook RS3. And this is also directional tire. And we've got these kind of flames and the logo kind of put into the rubber here. But this is a high performance kind of summer tire. Still DOT, still street legal. But you'll notice we've got super, super deep rain grooves for wet traction. But then we don't have any of those, soft squidgy bits for driving in the snow. This is really only made for driving in the summer. You can see that this tire is super old and cracked, even though there's plenty of tread. This thing needs to go to the recycler. But a high-performance summer tire is going to have kind of soft rubber up on the top, but then very, very hard, durable rubber on the side. That's kind of the good thing about a radial tire. If you notice the R in the tire sizes, that means we can do different things with our construction to give lots of traction here, soft rubber, and very, very stiff rubber here on the side, as opposed to our snow tire that's kind of soft everywhere, and our all-season tire that's going to have very, very durable rubber here, but softer rubber on the side to give us a more comfortable ride. And now in our less than street legal category, we've got a couple of race tires here. So the one on the right is from Mr. Dietrich's rallycross car, and you can think of this as kind of like a cleat. It's got super deep tread blocks, very pointy, all sorts of different shapes, and they are incredibly soft and move around. These are what you would use to race in the mud. So think of this like a football cleat or a rugby cleat or something like that. On the right, we've got an R compound race tire, and the rubber is so soft here that it actually peels up and is collecting other people's tire, other people's rubber, OPR if you will, from when I'm driving on track. This is from my track day car. But massive, massive tread blocks, really not a lot of room for water to go. These are not DOT legal, and they are not made for the street. We're out in the shop with Mr. Dietrich's rally car, and it's kind of in commuting mode right now. So he doesn't have his race tires on because he actually drives to the track and back in this thing, believe it or not. So let's take a look at his actual front tires and see what kind of shape they're in. So right off the bat, we can see that this is a 185/65/15, and it was made during the 27th week of 2018. So let's take a look at the tread and see if we can figure out what type of tire we think this is. You know, what season is this for? Is it for just the summer, just for the winter, or is this an all-season tire? Well, looking at all these tread blocks on here and all these different shapes, we can see that this is symmetrical. If we drew a line down the middle and flipped it, it's a symmetrical tire. And because it doesn't have giant tread blocks, it's definitely not a summer tire. And because it's got kind of medium-sized blocks and a little bit of siping, it's definitely not a snow tire. It's got a little bit of everything, so this is an all-season. So getting a closer look at the tread on this tire, it seems okay, right? We've still got plenty of tread depth left. There's no dry rotting, no cracking on the tread or on the sidewall. But let's get a closer look at one of those tread blocks and see if we can see one of those wear indicators. And we're well above the wear indicator there, so this tire is actually in pretty decent shape. Now, there are a whole bunch of reasons that your tires may have uneven wear, but one of the most kind of common things, apart from a bad alignment, is going to be improper inflation. If you have tire wear on the outsides of your tire, that means that the tire has been underinflated. So when you're turning, the whole tire kind of rocks side to side and you're getting excessive kind of rollover on the outside edge. If you've got less tread right down the middle, that means your tire's overinflated and the tire's kind of ballooned up and isn't rocking over the way it's supposed to, so that most of the wear and tear is kind of right here in the middle. Every manufacturer is going to have a set tire pressure that you're supposed to be at, and that there's going to be a placard inside the driver's side door that tells you exactly the pressures you're supposed to be at. So inside the door on here, we've got our regular vehicle information placard with our VIN and all of that. But then we also have our tire information, and it tells us exactly what size tires are supposed to be on this vehicle, as well as our spare. And then we also have our cold tire pressure, because tires will actually come up in pressure about 1 pound for every 10 degrees of temperature change. So it'll go up 1 pound for every 10 degrees up and down 1 pound for every 10 degrees down. These are supposed to be set at 35. Now, if you have a tire pressure monitoring system in your vehicle and you get one of those lights that pop up on the dash that tells you you're low, that's because you're 20% below the manufacturer's recommended pressures. So let's take a look at these tires and see where they're at. Got a couple of different tools down here. This is just a regular air filler chuck. Here's our tire pressure gauge. There's about 1,000 different styles of these. Some of them have a little needle that jumps up. I like the ones that have gauges on them, a little bit of a whip. So let's check this pressure. Remember, we're supposed to be set to 35 pounds, and right now these tires are at about 17. So we need to put a ton of air into this. In the shop, we use a filler that has a gauge on it and a filler, so we can put this on and then pull our trigger here, and that's going to fill up the tire. If I let go of this nozzle, or let go of this little trigger, it'll tell me where we're at. So now we're up to 21 pounds, we've got to go all the way up to 35. All right, so I went a little bit over, and there's a button on the back here that you can press to release air pressure. And we want to drop this down till our needle is right at 35. And then we'll go around and set the pressures on all the rest of these tires. I went around and checked the rest of the pressures on this car, and they were all down about 4 or 5 psi. That's probably because it's October in Chicago right now, and it's 30 degrees outside. The last time these tires were filled was probably July when it was 100 degrees outside. And every 10 degrees of ambient temperature outside, you may lose 1 psi of tire pressure. So we put them all up to 35. This car should be good to go. I'm going to get cleaned up, but if you have any questions, please feel free to shoot me an email, and be good. I'll see you next time.